Hello fellow gamers, Peter here from the Esoteric Order of Gamers, the channel all about fantastic tabletop games, especially really thematic immersive ones. Today I'm going to talk about a game that I should have reviewed a long time ago. It's called Sons of Faeriell. Faeriell. I think that's how you pronounce it. That sounds right, doesn't it? It's by Tabula Games, and they're a company that have made some fantastic games that I really should be talking about more because I really enjoy them and they're not a very well-known company. The first game I got from them was called Mysthea. They actually contacted me and sent me a copy to check out, and I was overwhelmed by it. I just thought, this is really a strange game. It had a very original fantasy world, and it was also quite a complex Euro-type game, but I really enjoyed it. And then they followed it up with another one called Ikaion. Yes, they do like difficult to pronounce names, which was set in the same strange fantasy universe, but was a different type of game, though it did share some mechanics. Both really interesting games. This one is a little bit different. It's set in a different universe altogether, but it is another crunchy Euro with an enjoyable theme that's very much integrated into the mechanics. So let's talk about Sons of Faeriell. Now, one of the things I love about Tabula Games is that they're beautifully produced. And this one is really a high point for the company so far. As you can see, it comes with all these individual trays for each player. And they've got individual character figures. These are called waybits, these characters. And not only do they have these character figures, but they have little masks that fit on each of the characters to tell you which type of hero they are. As you can see, beautiful production, and the artwork is great too. There's a big colourful board, and there's more pieces over here, all these lovely tiles, beautiful iconography, which is very easy to understand. You've even got a bag there as well. These are the Great Guardian pieces, which slightly different in style to everything else with this cartoony art. Wasn't absolutely crazy about that, but don't worry, because with the Kickstarter campaign, they came up with a Great Guardians miniatures set. And so you've got these very nice miniatures of the Great Guardians, and I very much recommend grabbing those if you can, if you like the look of this game. Also in that set came a 5th player tribe set and Dornog the Spider, who is an extra creature that you can use in your games with some variant rules. So as you can see, beautiful components, and they really drag you into this fascinating world. And what is this world all about, I hear you ask? Well, the world of Faeriell is a beautiful, verdant land, and in it live the tribes of waybits. They have different tribes, but everyone's getting along well and they take care of their environment. The Great Guardians are kind of spirit creatures that look after the land, but unfortunately the shadow of corruption is also coming over the land, and it is the goal of the tribes to go out and fight this corruption and try and preserve the beauty of the world they live in. The other twist with this game, however, is that one of the players can become the corruption sower, which is the person who wants corruption to take over the land. So there's an interesting little traitor mechanic in there as well. All this is applied with a very light touch indeed. The last two games were quite dark fantasy, but this one has that lovely environmentalist feel, and it is colourful and enjoyable and upbeat, despite the fact, of course, that corruption is going to destroy everything. But, you know, you've got to have light and shade. Now, despite the fact the theme is quite light, this is not a light game. It's quite a crunchy Euro, and there's a lot going on. And that's why I recommend, yes, you knew it was coming, the Esoteric Order of Gamers Rules Summary and Reference. If you go to orderofgamers.com, which is the Esoteric Order of Gamers website, you can download this. I've got all the rules on 2 sides of one sheet, and also there's a couple of reference sheets as well. This one gives you the turn order, everything you need to do during a turn on one side. It's got extra variants on the other side as well. And then this other sheet is all the iconography in the game and what it does. And there's a lot of iconography in this game. So this in particular is a very handy sheet. Of course, Tabula provided all this in the rulebook, but the rulebook is large and more difficult to pass around. So you'll find this very, very useful if you play this game. So go and check it out. And while you're at the website, you might consider leaving a little donation for my hard work. Also, you could join up to my Patreon channel if you really appreciate the Esoteric Order of Gamers. So how do you play Sons of Faeriell? Well, I'm not going to go into absolute fine detail because it is quite complex, but I'll give you a rough idea of the many things you can do during this game. And the great thing about this game is the choices. It's very fun to sit down and think, what am I going to do now? Because there are many options for you to work towards victory. And in fact, there isn't just one victory condition. There are several victory conditions, and they are achieved by achieving achievements. Achieved by achieving achievements. There are a whole range of achievements. There are hero achievements, essence achievements, terrain, tribe, and the pillar of society. So everything down that column there are achievements that you can get to work towards victory. So there are many paths towards victory in this game. Let's run through one round. You set up your tribe in front of you. You choose which type of hero you want your little Waybit miniature to have to start with, and that is identified by the mask that the Waybit is wearing. You'll each select a couple of regions and place your settlement on them for your starting regions. And you'll also take a couple of essence cards that match your regions. Now, the essence cards are the currency in the game. They come in different colours, and different combinations of essence cards can be used to buy different things. One of the clever things about this game is that it has 3 phases: the tribe phase, the event phase, and the hero phase. But you don't necessarily take them in that order. You have a tile representing each phase, and when your turn comes around, you can choose any one of these phases to play, turning the tile face down. But for the purposes of this description, let's do them in order. So starting with the tribe phase, you can spend essence cards to do various things. You could dress up a new hero, which is basically getting yourself a new hero by choosing one of your Waybit miniatures and attaching a mask to it. That miniature is now an active hero for you. You can level up a hero, taking a face-up perk from those available on the board and attaching it to your hero. You can build a settlement, and these are more expensive the more settlements you have. You place it adjacent to a region you already own, or in a region next to a node that one of your heroes is occupying. You can take one of the available beacons and place it on one of your own regions. You can take control of the spiritual totem and place it in one of your regions. Now, players can take control of this at any time, but the cost for doing so will increase each time. You can also spend essences to gather heirloom herb cards, and these are special cards that allow you to do special things later on. And finally, you can attune with a Great Guardian. So you take one of the Great Guardian attunement cards from the board and place it next to your player board. Now the event phase. In the event phase, you have to do these things in order. Optionally, you can move a Great Guardian if that Great Guardian's card is in your essence pool. Next, you complete a menace draft. Now, menace is a representation of the corruption that is overtaking the land. So you draw a certain number of tokens from the event bag depending on where the token on the doom track is. If you draw a menace token, you'll place it underneath the corresponding Great Guardian. If you draw a corruption token, you'll solve a corruption event. I'll tell you about that later. And if you draw a havoc token, you move the doom token 1 space forward and then put all discarded tokens back in the event bag. Next, optionally, you can solve a menace using a beacon or a spiritual totem, which are those things that you may have bought in the tribe phase. And when you solve a menace on the board, you take the menace token on the board, discard it next to the event bag, draw an essence card corresponding to the colour of the solved menace and add it to your essence pool, and move the tracking token of the corresponding colour 1 space forward on your player board track. And you do all these things because you're keeping track of what you're doing in order to get achievements. Finally, there's the harvest step, where you advance the harvest token clockwise a number of steps from 1 up to the number shown in the top empty settlement slot on your player board. So the more settlements you have, the more harvesting you'll be doing. You resolve the icon that it stops on, and depending on the result, you'll get a certain number of essence cards. But of course, areas that are threatened by menaces don't give you any essence. You can also trigger corruption events during this step. The last phase we're going to talk about is the hero phase, and you can perform any of these actions in any order. First, there are hero actions. Now, your hero travels the land helping out where they're needed. You can move along paths around regions. You can solve menaces. You can draw on a quest by drawing a card from an essence deck and placing it next to your hero. And you can solve a quest by going to the place where the appropriate Great Guardian is and hopefully collecting some essence. Of course, those perks that you've collected from your heroes can do all various things you can do now. And there are other things you can do, like use those Great Guardian attunement cards or solve a menace using heirloom herb cards. And there are all the things you can do in a round of the game. The last thing I want to mention are the corruption events. So during the game you can solve a corruption event, and this is where you have a nice bit of choice because you're trying to retain the purity of your tribe, and there's a little track that marks that. And every time you solve a corruption event, you can choose to take one of the corruption essence cards, which are like wild cards for essence cards. But if you do that, your purity is going to reduce a little bit. Alternatively, you can just ignore the corruption and the doom track will move up forward. And of course, that means you're going to be drawing more menace tokens. Alternatively, you can spend essence to cleanse your tribe or try and cleanse corruption somewhere on the board. Well, I know exactly what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, so many rules, brain exploding, And I must admit, when you first sit down with this game, you are going to be feeling that. However, and this is where this game shares something in common with the other two games I've played by Tabula Games, is that after you've played one turn, suddenly it all starts flowing rather beautifully. And I don't know how they do this because they are very, crunchy games. As you could tell, there's a lot of options and a lot of things you can do. However, there's just something about the elegance of the design. Yes, there's that word, elegance, that just makes it flow when you start playing. Now with this one, it is a little bit harder because there are so many options and so many things to do. But with my reference sheet, you shouldn't have any problems. Just work your way through the round and you'll soon see it all fit together like lovely pieces of jigsaw coming together to form a lovely picture. A verdant picture of the countryside. So what else can I say about Sons of Faeriell? Well, as you can tell, it's beautifully produced. There's a lot of work that's gone into it, a lot of complexity. Now, there are some disadvantages, of course. One is obvious. This is a complex game and is going to only appeal to a certain type of gamer, probably Euro gamers, but gamers like that will appreciate this fresher theming, I think. And by the same token, I think gamers that enjoy more thematic games will enjoy the Euro elements of this game if they put the effort in to learn it. The one thing I found that is a little bit hard to keep track of is what achievements everybody has and how close they are to winning. Now, you track everything on the board here so you can see what achievements everybody has, but while you're busy trying to come up with your own achievements, it's sometimes difficult to keep track of everybody else's, especially if you have multiple players. I really enjoyed this with 2 players, and I think it'd be great with more, but you'd really have to have everybody on top of the rules and knowing what they were doing. Just one small production issue, and that is the menace tokens and the way they fit under the miniatures. Because the menace tokens are about the same size as the bases, and the bases are not flat, they can sometimes fall off, and it's a bit difficult. Either a flat base on the miniature or a larger menace token would have been good. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned at all is the corruption sower. A player can turn into the corruption sower, exchange their perks for this special little set of perks, put on the dark mask, and actually want corruption to overtake the land. And when I say overtake the land, the doom track to go all the way to space 15. This is a lovely little mechanic at the end that can add a nice twist to things, and it's very interesting. There's also a pack of variants you can add to the game as well, so there's just so much to explore here. The only thing is, like all of these games, they do demand a lot of time and concentration, and that's the only problem because I enjoy playing this game, but when you have lots and lots of games, this is the kind of game that you really want to play quite a few times in succession till you get really comfortable with it, and you probably find when you come back to it after a long break, it's going to be difficult to sort of get back into the flow again. Another reason to have a good rules summary so you can pick it up quickly, but this isn't something where all the rules are going to stay in your head if you don't play it very often. So I think this is another winner from Tabula Games. I think they're doing some really interesting stuff. They've just done a Kickstarter for a new one called Ryozen, and that looks somewhat simpler. So it looks like they may be creating something with that game that would appeal to a more general audience. But I think these games are really worth the effort you put into them. I really love the mixture of theme and crunchy mechanics here. And while it's possibly a little bit more Euro than I'd usually tackle, I love playing something like this if I've got a like-minded player and we're sitting down for a good, crunchy, thinky kind of game. And as I said, the main thing that I enjoy about this game are the choices and all the things you can do. You never feel like you're on rails at any point. You always feel like you can pursue victory in the way you want to, but you've got to keep an eye on what the other person's doing as well. So that's really my favourite thing about this game, is the huge range of choices. That's it, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe and hit all notifications if you haven't already. Check out the website and download the rules summary, of course. And while you're at the website, you'll find all the videos I've done over the last 10 years, all my rules summaries, everything searchable and easy to find. I will see you next time. Happy gaming, everybody. See you next time.